Karim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear distinguished guests, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and pleasure to present my work in my PhD titled The Impact of Social Media and Network Governance on State Stability in Times of Turbulence. Mainly we are focusing about Egypt after the 2011 revolution. There was a lot of debates and discussion about what is happening in Egypt during the 25th of January revolution, how the political network have been organized, how they were contributing together, how they reached the levels that they can mobilize, that we can see such picture in Tahrir Square in Egypt in the daily events starting on the 25th or even earlier than that. To give you just a small information about Egypt, Egypt is almost around 85 to 88 million population. The internet exposure there is around 20 million users. The Facebook users before the 25th of January revolution was around 1 million. After the revolution, it reached almost 5 million users, and it is increasing daily by day. We have a couple of political groups and networks that started to appear before the Egyptian revolution, like Kifaya movement in 2006, 6th of April in 2007. One of these groups, which is 6th of April, started to use the Facebook in 2009, started by 300 user group. During the revolution, they reached almost 900,000 members. One of the most famous Facebook pages that appeared during the revolution, a page called We Are All Khaled Saeed. Khaled Saeed is a person or a young man who had been brutally abused by the police, and this picture was distributed all over the country through the Facebook. This page almost reaches over the 5 million users after the revolution, and it was considered one of the potential triggers that allowed people to contribute, that we have something in common, that we have to stand together to take change and influence our governance. Our following definition was focusing about the growing attention to our political analysis models that can assess the state governance situation. During our research review, we didn't find a model that normally focusing about the state governance situation. It was either focusing about transferring or volatile states or instability states, or it was focusing about the micro level of economics. Then we looked for a model that need to focus also on the non-state actors' influence, like the political networks that can organize, like in case of Kifaya and 6th of April, who started to influence the governance process in Egypt after the revolution. Also, there was a lot of demand to consider the non-Western form of organization of rule-making and conflict resolution. All of this was also the recommendation of AOCD during 2008. The main objective of this study is to develop a model to describe the state governance situation with respect to state stability in time of turbulence. My intention during this study was focusing how I can assess the state governance stability in a country like Egypt while we are in time of turbulence. We are switching from a purely hierarchy governance to a network governance, and we are facing some kind of turbulence during this transition. So how we can assess that we are reaching stability or going toward instability. The main contribution of this study was something called the Circle of State Stability model. The idea of this model, it is a representation model where we can present if the state is going in the direction of stability or it is going in the direction of instability. The proposed model represents an improvement of existing model. Why? Because we see it is much more simple. The most number of existing models was much more complex, it was much more quantitative, it was depending on numbering and so on, which is not relevant to situation on Egypt. Covers the macro level because in state governance you are having a lot of dimensions and a lot of different variables that interacting with each other, and who are taking the decision making should look on a very high macro level to see what we are doing now. Also, this model can be tailored for different state conditions, like say Egypt, Tunisia, Iran, or Syria, or Libya, which are considered during the Arab Spring countries. Most of the current model during this time was not able to assess what is happening. Everybody was saying we cannot predict what is happening next, and we cannot analyze how it is happening so suddenly and how the result or the impact would appear. So we try to translate this model to understand what is happening in the Arab Spring countries. Also, we try to make this model to be much more functioning as a general conceptual framework where we can embed different models that can help in assessing such countries for state stability conditions, because we see there are different governance models that can be either a market governance model or a hierarchy or a network, and this will help us to assess that state stability. In fourth, this doesn't ignore the value of market governance structure, but we see that the market governance structure, which is focusing on efficiency and productivity, can be embedded in both, or need to be embedded in both two types of structure. Also, we saw that these types of structure have some kind of conflict. The hierarchical structure is representative of most of the old regimes in the Arab Spring countries, like Mubarak regime, Gaddafi regime, Bashar regime, and so on, because it depends on hierarchy and reporting and control of the state. They are looking to much more control of the state. The network governance started to appear before the uprising of the Arab Spring country and started to develop after that. So currently we have a lot of groups who are participating in the decision making on the governance structure. Say in the case of Egypt, we have brotherhoods, we have Salafi movements, we have Kifaya, we have Six April, we have liberal parties, we have different ideologies which are trying to participate in the process. The state instability, we consider it can appear in four main categories of instability condition, which is the confrontation, and the dictatorship and anarchy and failed state. The confrontation, when we have the network governance against the hierarchy governance, and they are both equal in power, and they are also looking to compete each other. This can translate what happened during the 25th of January, when Mubarak regime was in confrontation with the opposition. So we have a strong opposition in front of a strong regime at that time, and they are starting to have a confrontation, which is considered it's a case of instability, because the state or the country are confronting each other to compete who will take over or who will be able to take the decision later. The dictatorship is the case where Mubarak regime before the revolution. So the opposition was very weak. It was not able to use the network governance against the hierarchy governance because the state was very strong at that time. And also the case of the Gaddafi at that time in Libya. So there no opposition allowed to participate either in political networks or in a different way of participation. The case of anarchy, where the two governance structures are weak. They are not able to control the state, and we have a lot of networks which are fighting each other, which we are afraid that we'll have now in Egypt, because we have a lot of political networks starting to be against each other, willing to use different means to take over the control of the state. The failed state was none of them have a control on the country. This can be appearing in, say, states like, say, Somalia, where there is no real government that can take a decision on behalf of the state, and every group have its own control of its area. We have another assumption, which is the state stability can be achieved if the state governance structure can achieve a reasonable balance between legal, democratic, and economic values. In our literature review, we started to study the PVM, or the public value management values, which focusing on three main categories. The legal, which looking to the rule of law, that we need the rule of law that govern who will do what and who will be accountable, and how the system will deal with different parties, which making sure that there is a rule in the country or in the state, which is respect the value of law. This, the hierarchical governance will appreciate more compared to other values. The democratic values, which is looking for participations, looking for equality, looking for access of information and so on, which is much more appreciated by the network governance. The economic values, which is looking much more for the efficiency and the productivity of the governance system. So they are looking more how we can make our economy, how we can make our society more productive and can achieve more better results. Most of these governance structures was looking on one of these values only. We see that to achieve the state stability, we need to make a reasonable balance between these types of values, which is the legal, the democratic, and the economic value. We found that most of the demand of current political network in, say, countries like Egypt or Arab Spring was focusing only on the democratic value, and they appreciated the value of the legal values. This what resulted to that in Egypt now there is no respect to law. The judicial power is not able to take decisions now. Whenever they issue a law or they make a judgment, people can protest and say, no, we are not going to follow this law. So we are losing the type of security and fairness of applying law. If you are focusing on democratic values only, this will allow all and ignoring the values of the legal, this will allow more for anarchy. So we need both to be considered, the legal values and the democratic value. Also currently the economic values is the least important for us. So what happened for us after 2011, our economy are facing a lot of troubles because we didn't focus on production, we didn't focus on maintaining our productivity and so on, so our currency are going down, we have a lot of trouble of importing or exporting, we have labor with closed factories, so this also is impacting our society. We designed the thesis, which is the Center of State Stability model, as a conception model to help describe and document Egypt's political situation after the 2011. We focus in our case study about Egypt after the 2011, and we take two main phases. Sorry for that. Also, one of our contribution which can be embedded in the Center of State Stability is something we call it the governance analysis framework. What is the governance analysis framework? We divided four main phases: the scope map phase, the stakeholder map phase, and the process map phase, and the governance map phase. We see that these phases are important in analyzing the state stability condition in any country. This will allow us to use the circle of state stability model. The phase one is describing the three main streams described by Kingdom in his multiple stream model, which is the problem stream, the solution stream, and the political stream. The problem stream where we are defining what we are facing now. So we were transferring from purely dictatorship regime to a new expected democratic regime. So this was considered a problem. How we are going to adapt the mechanism of our governance models that will allow for more democratic. Then we have the solution stream, which were considered to re-amend our constitution and make a new parliamentary elections and select a new president to the state to apply this democratic governance. The political stream, which was the political condition in Egypt. We have the previous regimes and we have new current ideology appearing in Egypt, either Islamic ideology or either a liberal ideology which try to participate in the governance model. All of them have their own demands. We're starting to have protests, we're starting to have different mobilization and counter-mobilization in Tahrir Square. So we use the multiple stream model by Kingdom to use this phase. This will help us to define the scope and the condition of the current situation on the state. Then we look to the stakeholder map. What is the stakeholder map? Mainly it looks to describe who are the main actors and their relation with each other. Either state actors or non-state actors. So we look for citizen power, and we look for executive authority, judicial authority, legislative authority, and non-state political power. So we use here the policy network analysis (PNA) developed by Ludus in 1995. We found this is very important in analyzing any case to know who is the main stakeholders in the governance model, either state or non-state, either they are taking part or not taking part. Phase 3 will focus on identifying policy network, coalition, and their usage of social media. We found during the process, sometimes it is different from case to case because the coalitions are different depending on the interest of the case. So if I'm making a new constitution where I develop, say, enforcing the Islamic ideology, you'll find most of the Islamic parties were focusing to make a coalition during the constitution referendum. But in the reverse, on the parliamentary elections, they started to have a different coalition, depend who will win what and who will take a benefit, depend on every case. Also, we focused on identify the control level of main actors on social media and identify the confrontation level on social media. Mainly, we use here the Advocate Coalition Framework, ASF, developed by Sabatir and J.K. Smith in 1999, and we also focused on the social media literature in this case. Of course, if you are applying this model in different countries, we can add different dimensions as we are going to see later. In phase 4, a governance map, here we are going to use the center of state stability. Here we describe the progress or not of the state transformation from transition state toward state stability. So the center of state stability will be as a translation of these three phases and describe where are we from stability or not. The case study analysis, there is a different drivers influence state stability. Mainly we focused on the impact of social media on state stability by considering the control of over social media and the confrontation over social media. We had two cases in this study, which is the Egyptian constitutional referendum in 2011 and the Egyptian parliamentary election in 2012. We see that these two cases was very important in the transition phase of Egypt from instability toward stability, depending on the result as we're going to see. The Egyptian constitutional referendum was the first demand after the Egyptian revolution that most of the political power asked that we need to make a referendum for the Egyptian constitution where we can control the power of the president or control the power of the regime and allow for more democratic values. And another group, which is our opponent, were looking for developing a new constitution from the scratch. So the debate was from the proponents that they are allowing for just more amendments in the existing constitution, and the opponents were saying, no, we need a different new constitution for Egypt that will allow for more democratic values. The proponent who supported this referendum mainly was the Brotherhood group, the Salafi movement group, the old regime supporter, and they went, ironically, over 77.27% of the referendum. The opponent, which represents the liberal parties, the Kifaya movement, the 6th April movement, the Vrije, one of the common figures in Egypt, and Amr Musa, also one of the common figures in Egypt, and Christians in Egypt. We have almost about 9 million to 10 million Christians as a population in Egypt, which is, I think it is around 15%. Correct? 10? In this range. So, and we have this group. So they won around almost 22% of the referendum. So they were not able to make a new constitution and they have to accept the referendum. In the other case, which is the Egyptian parliament in 2012 election, which was between October 2011 and March 2012, the result is that most of the Islamic party ideology, like the Vrije or Adala, which represents the Brotherhood, and the Nur party, which represents the Salafi movement, won average 70% of the seats of the parliament. The liberal ideology, like Egyptian bloc, which represents the liberal parties, and Amr Musa was around almost 15%. The new revolutionary party, which depending mainly on youth, and one of them was, that party was Revolution Continuous Alliance, won around 1.38%. Okay, so this result was some kind shocking for some people and was acceptable for some people. How comes the new revolutionary party have such low percent, and how comes that other parties have a bigger percent? So we see that during the analysis of the governance analysis framework, we found that the Islamic ideology party was able to make better coalition and better mobilization strategies than other groups. The new revolutionary parties was focusing only on the mobilization on the streets, but they didn't focus on the election itself. So they entered the election in the end of the beginning of the election, and they thought that they can change the dates or postpone the election until they are prepared. So a couple of events like Maspiro event and like Mohammed Mahmoud event was a catastrophic clashes events in Egypt during these times. It didn't have an impact to postpone the election, but the negative impact was on the new revolutionary parties, which was supported by Kifaya and was supported by 6 of 8 activist movement in the opponents. This is the design of the model that represents the state stability. It is divided, mainly it is a big square which represents the country itself, and in our case it is Egypt, and we have in the middle here the circle of state stability. If this dot, which spots the situation of the country, reaches here, this means that this state is in state stability. To reach this circle, it needs to fulfill the values of the PPM, which is the legal values, the democratic values, and the economical values. The corners is the instability corners. So if we find here, this is the high hierarchy, this is the control of the hierarchy governance. We find here this is the dictatorship state. This is where the Mubarak regime before the revolution started to transfer from here to here. Here is the confrontation state where we have strong network governance and we have strong hierarchical governance, and they are looking to compete with each other. So in the first case, there is tendency to state control. In the second state, it is tendency to revolution, because it is the governance structure against governance structure. In below corner, we find the anarchy states corner, where it is a high network and there is a weak state control. There is no state control. Okay? And this network starting to compete against other and starting to use different means, even violence means. Currently in Egypt, we started to have different groups like Black Bloc, Ultras, and different groups who are willing to use even power and are willing to use weapons against the army or the police to enforce their objectives. So this is considered a direction to going into this anarchy state, because there is no real role of the law. Here the legal values are very weak. Maybe you have some democratic values, but the legal values is not used enough here. In the failed state, there is no control, either through networks or either hierarchy, so it is where we can call it a failed state. These can happen on countries after war, like Iraq or Germany in the Second World War, and normally this doesn't take a long time, because the occupying country or the United Nations will try to take a role to build a state control in this region. So we see this before the revolution. Egypt was here, transferred in the revolution here. After the revolution, we started to go here. We are going from this confrontation because Mubarak regime fell down and started to go here. Ideally, we see that Egypt, if it was able to follow these steps, it will be in the direction going to state stability. So the first step, we were here during the Egyptian revolution in the 25th of Jan 2011. We started to go out of the confrontation corner in the constitutional referendum and accepting the constitutional referendum. Then we went out of this confrontation when we went to the parliamentary election in October 2011. Hopefully in the presidential election in April 2012, if it is accepted and going and are fulfilling the values that we agreed on, then we are going to continue until we reach the state stability. If you follow this step with no deviation on balancing these values, and the presidential election allowed to produce a governance system that respects the non-governance states and
can balance between the three values we're looking for, then it includes the state stability. We find this is what we see is the actual picture now. Not sure, is a big deviation or not? Okay. So we were here, okay, we transferred in the constitutional referendums, then we went to the parliamentary election. Ironically, in April 2012, okay, we went to dissolve the parliament. So we made the step and we get back. We canceled the step. And then we went to the presidential election without a parliament. So we have one of the main authority in the state was not working, and we went to the presidential election. So you see there is a shift from this corner toward this corner. Currently we had another amendment of the presidential of the current President Morsi representing the Muslim Brotherhood, which make a new power to the president. So I took from new power after the revolution to make sure there is no corruption. Now, end of 2012, I make a new constitution amendment saying that I have this power back. So we went a confrontation between opposition and the current ruling regime representing the Brotherhood. So we are starting to have here a control of networks against each other, not state control. The role of the state now is becoming more weak. So if we have the police now, the police is not able to enforce law. Most of the department of the government have troubles or corruption, so they are not able to enforce the law. So the legal values here are much depreciated. The democratic value is not really equally developed, and of course there is no economic values at all, which is representing our economical situation. Ironically, if Egypt continue like this, we'll go for the anarchy state. There is another scenario, which we have some rumors now that there will be some kind of a military action. If this military action happens to take over the state control again, then we'll go from here to here. Okay? Not sure if Egypt will be able to go to the circle of state stability. This can happen only if this military action can make a proper balance between the three values we spoke about again. So any government structure will not make this proper balance, will be hardly able to go to state stability unless it uses excessive control, using power against civilians and so on, like what's happening in Syria. So that the conditions that we are seeing now according to the Center of State Stability model. The conclusions that we found in our studies that the role of social media in Egypt after the 2011 revolution can be understood through the relationship with the creation of policy networks, that we find that social media was helping and facilitating this creation of policy network, like Kifaya, 6 of April, and so on. The organization of protests, the communications, the mobilization, and even the counter-mobilization, because currently if you are following the Egyptian Facebook, you will find the people who are supporting the Brotherhood, they are saying that they are working in the right direction and this is what is required and so on. The people who are in opposition, they know we have to go to the street and we have to use violence, and they have different means of mechanism of mass protest. Social media provides the space and tools to form and expand networks that the Egyptian authority could not easily control during the time frame of the two case studies. Ironically, during Mubarak regime, he said, let people have fun. He said, Karim okay, in Arabic. So he said that this is a way of expression that people can use the Facebook to make expression, but they under-evaluate that this Facebook or this social media can facilitate creating network and creating common interest for protesting and mobilization, especially in showing pictures and violence. So it go out of the state control. Most of the hierarchy or the dictatorship states looks that they are controlling the state media. Social media is out of the state control. This feeds the fact of China because they have their own social media, so they can make sure that they have their own control in their media. During the revolution, the Egyptian TV was giving that the Tahrir Square is empty, traffic is fine, economy is growing, everybody is happy, Okay, but social media and different news were showing a lot of clashes, a lot of Molotov, and a lot of mobilizations. This piece I debate on the impact of social media, it actually helped different policy networks by facilitating new connection among the middle class, youth, and supporting the circulation of stories, videos, blogs, tweets, posts that promote the interest. Can I say joke?
You
Yeah. A joke. Am I allowed to say joke or not?
Depends on the quality.
There was a common joke during the revolution saying that Mubarak, Sadat and Abdel Nasser is a former president in Egypt, have met together, say, in the afterlife. So they ask each other, what killed you or what brought you here in afterlife? So Abdel Nasser said, I was poisoned. So it was the turn of Sadat. Sadat, he said, I was killed. So they, both of them looked to Mubarak, what brought you? He said, Facebook. So this is reflect how social media was impacting our society in that time. We are looking for future discussions that we have to go in depth to address the role of market governance, because the state, if doesn't have the efficient or sufficient capabilities to maintain its economy and maintain its capabilities to give the sufficient service to its society, it will not be easy to sustain, even if it is democratic and even if the respect of law. We have also to outline different drivers like culture and societal structure. Also, state stability characterization. Who is more priority for you? The legal values or the democratic values or the economical value? This can be different from state to state or different to the condition even of the same state. Also, the effect of the external influence, because ironically when we were reviewing our cases, we find that the social media was used by different news media outside of Egypt, like Al Jazeera, which was supported by Qatar, like Al Arabiya, which was supported by Saudi Arabia, like France 24, BBC Arabic. So all of them were trying to make a link between the society in Egypt and overcoming any state control. So the external influence means also more. I hope I've done it in the right time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's certainly a fascinating subject. I see most of you do research on and write a PhD. Why?